Hello everyone! Today I'll talk about how I scored a 3300 on the UCAT in the 99th percentile, which is the admissions test for most medical schools in the UK and Australia. I'll first go over my UCAT journey, then give some general advice and strategies, and finally some section specific tips. So I hope you find this video helpful. Okay, so for me, I started revising for the UCAT in June of 2023 and sat it in late August, so I had roughly 3 months to prepare. During this time, I'd study and practice for about 5 hours every day, but towards the end, I was devoting more and more time to revision. Ultimately, I was able to score 3300 on the UCAT. I scored 880 in verbal reasoning, 870 in decision making, 900 in quantitative reasoning, 650 in abstract reasoning, and band 2 in situational judgment. Next, I'll give some general advice. Number 1. The UCAT is a highly time-crunched exam. Most people don't have time to complete all the questions, so this is nothing like your past school exams where you would prioritize getting every question right. For the UCAT, it is quantity over quality. And for me, making that mindset change made the most difference to improve my score. Number 2, know your weakest link. So do a mock from time to time and find which sections you struggle with the most, and then focus your revision on improving that. You'll find that your overall score will get better, and it's the most time efficient strategy as well. So don't be afraid to tackle your weakest section. Number 3, as you practice, you'll likely be flooded by questions, and initially you'll get a lot of them wrong. The strategy that worked for me was keeping a Google Doc of all of my incorrect questions, and I analyzed why I got them wrong. Without doing this, my score would have stayed the same. Number 4, during your revision, your stress levels will inevitably rise and your happiness will go down. That's why it's important to have time to yourself and find some activities that will help you de stress. So for me, it was exercising, praying, and spending time with my family. Now, there are many more ways to de stress, like seeing friends or meditating, so find whatever works for you to support you through this time. Finally, on test prep resources. For me, in addition to the official Pearson question banks and practice tests, I also used both Medify and MedEntry, and I honestly found them to be equally helpful. So my advice would be to get started by first learning the content and familiarizing yourself with the exam format on Medify, and then using the question bank on Medify or MedEntry or both to practice. Finally, when you're towards the end of your revision, use the official Pearson practice resources. Verbal reasoning is really all about reading a short passage which contains a lot of information. The key is to find a reading technique that works best for you so that you can absorb all that information in a short period of time. Now, there are two main strategies. The first way is to read the questions first so that you can get a gist of all the information you'll need to find, and then going back to the passage and find what you need. The second way is to read the passage in its entirety, brute force memorize it, and then answering the questions. Now, I personally prefer the second method, even though most people will find the first more suitable to themselves. So, the moral of the story is to find whatever works for you. Bottom line, you need to be able to absorb a lot of information in a short time and retain it. The other most important tip I have for verbal reasoning is to not take anything for granted. Don't make any assumptions or use any information that you know outside of the passage. So, if a passage is about marine biology and you happen to be an expert, be really careful. Only use what's given to you in the passage to help you answer the questions. Decision making is about logical reasoning and critical thinking. So, in this regard, they are similar to some IQ test questions. It's probably going to be your first time dealing with these type of questions, as was the case for me. Personally, I found the Medify Learn page highly beneficial in helping me understand the different types of questions like on decision making, like logic puzzles, arguments, Venn diagrams, etc. With these questions, it's all about practice. Once you understand how to answer these questions, practice, practice, and practice, and you'll soon reach a proficient level. Quantitative reasoning is where I think the quantity over quality principle really shines. The questions are simple, but there's only so much time and you have so many more calculations to make. So my biggest piece of advice is to learn to skip questions when you see that it's going to take you a lot of calculations. Skip it and come back later if you have time. My other advice is to familiarize yourself with keyboard shortcuts, especially when navigating the page and using the calculator. Something to look out for is that the keyboard you'll use on the exam is probably different from your own personal laptops, so I would recommend going to a public library and using the older keyboards to practice QR, which will probably resemble the test center keyboard much better. Abstract reasoning was actually my weakest section, but I've reflected on what I could have done in hindsight, so I hope this advice will be helpful. For abstract reasoning, it's all about pattern recognition, and this really isn't a shortcut but practice. That's actually how AI can beat humans in imaging analysis, repeated practice, and learning. Now, of course, we don't have computer level brain power, but the strategy is still more or less the same. Finally, situational judgment. It involves you being given scenarios as a doctor or a medical student and you considering how important or appropriate hypothetical factors or responses would be. Usually, there are 4 degrees. A factor would either be important or not important, and similarly, a hypothetical action could be either appropriate or inappropriate. From there, each label will be divided into 2 more degrees so that you could end up with very important, important, of minor importance, and not important at all. My strategy for this section is to first decide whether something is important/appropriate or unimportant/inappropriate. And once I've done that, I would then figure out how important or how unimportant it is. My other piece of advice, which you may have heard already from someone else, is to read the Good Medical Practice Ethics Guide. It sets out the professional standards for doctors, and that's what the situational judgment test is actually based on. So, reviewing this will also be helpful for your medical school interviews, especially on medical ethics questions. Okay, so that is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any question for me or would like me to talk about something specific, please leave a comment below. Finally, I'd like to say that the UCAT is not designed to be like a regular school exam. It is very challenging for everyone. So please be kind to yourself and trust that if you work hard and work smart, you'll see an improvement. So good luck everyone and see you next time.